There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you so much for joining me for this brand new interview. Okay, this is pretty special right now. I'm talking to someone that is a real inspiration for the commentary career as an aspiring broadcaster myself. Commentator for Smash Wrestling. You might have seen him on the Canadian professional wrestling scene as well. And the way that he tells a story when it comes to professional wrestling matches is absolutely gold. I mean, the way that he tells the story in the ring, whether that's matches with Johnny Gargano, the Kevin Bennett, all these great matches that have happened on Smash Wrestling, he has told that story through his perspective, his set of eyes, and it's absolutely amazing. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the one and only Scott Hunter. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Living. Surprisingly, 2020 is dialing down a bit, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, this year's almost over. Yeah, we're almost through it.
Absolutely. And it's always great to have that good positive mindset as well.
That's it.
So the one thing I do want to kind of start off with is the fact that you put your passion for what you do, which is, professional wrestling commentary, and the way that you display the action that's going on in the ring. Of course, we already know that the main important ingredient is the action going around, around the ring. But when you have that voice behind it, I think it's truly special to kind of add that in there.
I appreciate you saying that. And I think a big reason for that is because I'm passionate about the product that we put out there. And I think that it's really cool that my passion is able to translate through the microphone, and other people are getting invested as well. Because, as you said, the talent is in the ring. So my job is to make it sound as good as it looks.
Absolutely, and what is cool about it too is that when it talks about Scott Hunter and Smash Wrestling, there's so many great moments that have been translated through your voice. So how does it feel kind of to really be that voice for moments that will be kind of remembered forever when it comes to Smash Wrestling?
Well, it's kind of surreal, really, that I've been very fortunate in my career that I've been able to call a lot of people that most people won't get the chance to do in their broadcasting careers. I got really lucky early on. We had a great roster of future stars in the business, and realistically, I hadn't really earned that opportunity yet. It was just kind of presented in front of me, and I kind of developed in front of everybody, along with the product and along with the brand itself. Again, it's just a passion, a real passion for what I do, and a real passion for what we put forward. But yeah, to think about some of these iconic moments and people coming in and out the doors of Smash Wrestling, it's surreal to look back on some of those moments, because you're so constantly focused on what's the next show and what's next that you don't really get a lot of time to reflect on what you've already done and look back. So that's the one good thing that 2020 has brought me. It's a lot of time to reflect on things that we have done in the past.
Absolutely. And when it comes to Scott Hunter, you really are the defining voice of Smash Wrestling and all basically of, Canadian pro wrestling. The one thing I do have to ask is that, when you got the call of saying, you're going to be one of the voices for Smash Wrestling, was there any kind of like that excitement, like a kid in the candy store, or was it kind of like, man, this finally, it took like years?
Oh, it's sort of, yeah. Like I was definitely like beyond excited to get the opportunity, but I really just, my story is a lot different than most. It's not like I had to grind my way. Like I said, I was really just kind of handed an opportunity that I hadn't really earned yet. I went to school for sports broadcasting, and I was the right guy in the right place at the right time. They were looking for a commentator. Art O'Cal had called the first couple of shows right before he got moved to the WWE, so there was an opening there, and like I said, right place, right time. They gave me a tryout. I got to call the dark match for the first ever Canusa Classic, Sebastian came over and asked Dustin, who at the time I was doing commentary with Dustin Perry, who's now our ring announcer, asked him how was I and how he sounded. Dustin just looked at him and said he's perfect. And so then they asked me if I wanted to call the whole show. I said okay. So I called the show, and then I just kept showing up until expecting someone to say okay, like that was it. And now it's been 8 years and no one's told me that's it yet. So I just keep showing up.
Absolutely. And you're not just keep showing up, but you're also showcasing that passion for commentary, especially with that background of sports broadcasting.
Well, and I think too, like they kind of play hand in hand. And for for me, I had the background, so I was comfortable on a microphone. I was comfortable on camera. I was comfortable on a headset before going into Smash Wrestling. And I'm a lifelong fan of professional wrestling as well, which definitely helped into it a lot. It took me a while to really get used to looking at the talent as peers and not as, oh my God, that's Chris Hero or that's Johnny Gargano. It took me a long time to realize that I'm working alongside them. I'm not a fan anymore. I am still a fan, but I have a role to play in this business as well, and in those stories. So that was the biggest adjustment for me in those first couple of years, for sure. But yeah, once I got into a groove, I'm just like, I love doing it. It doesn't even feel like work when I'm doing it. I love it.
Absolutely. That's why I always consider sports broadcasting literally a job where it doesn't feel like a job. It's like literally you go in, you do the, of course, the research, the analytics, and then not only that, but you just to get to call a match, which that to me is the most fun that anybody could have as a job. So it's that feeling of really calling the action, but you're really just telling a story.
Well, and that's it. And I've had the fortune of being able to meet Jim Ross a couple of times at the Cauliflower Alley Club in Vegas. There, I go there every year, and he just has such obviously he's the best ever at commentary, and he just has such a unique perspective on the role. And I really picked his brain on a lot of things, and he said that the guys in the ring are the ones telling the story, and it was his job to narrate that story. And I really took that to heart. I think that it's, if you're doing commentary just for the sake of doing commentary, like, you could tell jokes for yourself from the boys in the back all day, but that's not really going to translate to the product, and not necessarily translate to the audience either. You can't really tell a lot of inside jokes when the audience isn't inside with you. So really, I tell a story for people who might be watching the show for the very first time. I take that into consideration as well, that each and every time someone's making their entrance might be someone's first time seeing them. So my job is to try to tell that story in a condensed version of it while they're on their way to the ring. So that way I can now establish these are the two characters. Now let's tell the story of the match itself.
Absolutely. And it's always that storytelling mentality that always brings fans in, and not just fans, but of course, like myself, aspiring broadcasters who want to go into the business as well.
Well, yeah, and I think that it's cool hearing other people within the industry compliment things that I've done as well. As I never will get used to hearing things like that. But especially nowadays with the social media, and it's so easy for people to be negative if they want to be. But I get a lot of time. We get a lot of emails at Smash Wrestling of people asking. They just want to jump right into commentary with having never set foot in the industry before, and it's not impossible to do because it's exactly what I ended up doing. But it's not easy to do either. And I've always said I take that as a compliment as well. That it means I'm making the job look easy if everyone thinks they can just walk in there and do it. It is a lot harder than it looks. It is a lot harder than it sounds. You could know everything there is to know about pro wrestling, but until the headset goes on and there's the red light and you're live, it's a very different story. And a lot of times you're coming up with things on the fly. But no, I love the role. I take it very seriously. I think that a good commentator can make a bad match passable, and a bad commentator can completely ruin a good match.
Absolutely.
And especially in the bulk of the independent scene that I had watched before Smash Wrestling, a lot of the commentary was just a couple of guys drinking beers and swearing and just having a blast, having fun, but it's not really translating the product. So I kind of wanted to try to get the stigma of what an independent commentator is and change it a little bit, and try to take it more, try to put the professional back in professional wrestling a little bit.
Absolutely. And you did mention a lot about Jim Ross, who a lot of us actually look up to as well. You really bring that professionalism, because when it comes to Jim Ross, of course, he's done stuff past WWE or WWF at the time, back with the NWA and stuff like that. And what's so amazing is that you kind of bring that style back of professionalism, but of course, you're still telling that story. Of course, like you mentioned before, they're not a couple of guys drinking beers doing what they could do on the fly. It's like, you know, the product, you know what's happening, and you're trying to really tell that story for those who are just watching for the first time, or if it's like, man, I've been a diehard Smash Wrestling fan for years, and he's, you know, replicating a brand new story for me.
Well, yeah, and I think it's also really important too that you sit down with the talent before the show, and hear the story that they're telling in their own words. What parts are they trying to highlight? What parts do they want to make sure really stand out to the fans? And a lot of times I'll have some of the guys will come up to me and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about I'm going to try something new. Maybe, you know, I don't have a name for it yet, so call it when you see it," sort of thing. So every now and then there's stuff like that, or like little nicknames that we throw, trying to brand the offense, trying to brand the characters as well. But yeah, a lot of times it's important to hear the story from their perspective, because sometimes you might not see it initially with the naked eye had they not told me about it beforehand. So the fact that I'm able to really highlight their version of their story is really cool. And then a lot of times it's the credit done as well to the editors and to the camera people we have at Smash Wrestling as well, because there's a lot of times where I could talk about the emotion in someone's eyes or the pain on their face, and then within seconds we got the camera shot that's just like zoomed in right on it. So we've all got a role to play in the final product, and it's really cool to see when it all comes together.
Absolutely. And that's what's great about also sports broadcasting as well, is that you get that aspect from all aspects of production. You have, of course, the on-camera talent. You also have the script writers. You have the editors. You have the camera people. You have the lighting crew. You have so much that is a part of it. You know, because I recently went through community college along with a lot of production classes. And then I really took into perspective so much and respecting so much more than what I already knew. And just having that respect for all the camera crew, all the lighting crew, all the production crew in general, just really helps you kind of go into, when you make it big, to really kind of appreciate everything more.
Well, and I think it really, like, it's a team game, pro wrestling. It really is. There's a lot of work that goes into it before the bell rings and before the match even starts. And we're all there to put each other over. We're all there to make each other look good, because that's the rising tide raises all boats. That's what makes the product as good as it can possibly be. I joke about it, but I'm also serious. That I put on a headset. I have no idea what the other end of it's plugged into. I don't know how that stuff works. But luckily, we have people with us at Smash Wrestling that do know how that stuff works. So they're going to make me look good. They're going to make me sound good as best as I can. So that way I can do what I do best, put the product over. So it's we all have a part to play in the final product, and it's really cool to see it, and to think now too that my voice has traveled to places that I will never go, or in places that I've never been before, and that's really cool to think about sometimes. And it's when you hear that fans sometimes we'll get tweets from fans from Italy or the UK, and like I hope to one day go to these places, but it's really cool that in a way I already have.
Absolutely. It's just that your voice like brings people together from all parts of the world, and it's always awesome to kind of get that reception back from, like you mentioned before, just like people from Italy, people from England, people from all over the world, just giving you this feedback that probably never have been in a live Smash Wrestling event before, but just hearing on the internet or on television, wherever they hear your voice, is really truly something special.
Well, and I think, like, as cool as it is to see the product on YouTube and to see it on the Fight Network, there's really no comparison to experiencing independent, not just Smash Wrestling, but independent wrestling in person.
Oh yeah,
it is such a different vibe from the bigger shows. I mean, and credit to those with the big production and everything you get from a WWE or say an AEW as well. But the independent, it's the roots. It's an intimate feeling. You're right there with the action, and like there's really. I encourage people to experience independent wrestling both ways. Go there live and then watch it on television or YouTube or whatever afterwards.
Absolutely. There's something special about independent wrestling, because I've been to a couple myself, and it's just the fact that the crowd's into it. Of course, we don't have a crowd right now, but at the time, the crowd's into it. There's not necessarily a storyline that's being portrayed in certain independent spots, and you're really just there to witness these individuals, these athletes, both men and women, for the first time, and just really witness their story being told for new fans or for fans that have been going to that show for 10 years. It's always awesome just to see that unfold for the first time.
Well, and I've always said to people, just go to one show, whether you're on the fence about it or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of independent places that the tickets are affordable, very affordable to the average person. So go to one show. I guarantee you'll be hooked on the product if they're doing it right. And then you're off to the races from there. Like we have a lot of fans that still remember the first show that they came to, and it's the experience that you get, the atmosphere that you get, not just from the show itself, but before the show and after the show, where you actually get to shake hands with the wrestlers and the performers, and you get to befriend a lot of the wrestlers. You get to befriend a lot of the crew. I've met some great friends through independent wrestling, and I wouldn't change a single thing that I've done so far.
Absolutely, and we hope that the career for Scott Hunter continues after, God willing, the pandemic is over by then. But speaking about Scott Hunter, I do want to talk about your background before you made it into the commentary desk, and that is with your sports broadcasting background. Can you talk to us about how that started for you? Like, when you got into sports broadcasting, was it something you immediately said, you know what, this is something I want to do from the start, or was it something that you kind of got into later in life?
A bit of both. I kind of had a passion for it, and then started throughout high school thinking about there's a whole bunch of different things in high school that I wanted to be and wanted to do. And I remember we had there was a book project that we had to do a presentation on To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, nice.
And that was in, I want to say grade 10, grade 11. And you had to come up with a creative way to do a book report on it. So I did I recorded, this back then, a big cassette player I had, and I just recorded my own radio show where I interviewed the characters from the book, and then I did all the voices for the characters from the book. And my teacher just thought that was so clever and so just outside the box thinking, and said that, maybe you want to start thinking about doing like radio or something like that. So it never really occurred to me before that. I said, oh, maybe, okay. And then I've always had a passion for sports, but I've always had a passion for writing as well. And when it came time to start looking at universities and colleges, I wanted to go for print journalism. Was my initial game plan. And then when I ended up going to Wilfrid Laurier University, and I was in the guinea pig year of the journalism program. They didn't have one before I got there, so it was really us. It was a class of 6 people, which is insane for university. But we really got to dictate how the courses went. And in the first year, it was very broad, just journalism, where you were doing a little bit of print, a little bit of radio, a little bit of television. And then in your second year, you're supposed to go and branch out into whichever facet you were going to pursue. So the plan going into the whole thing was, all right, I'll just do a broad sense in the first year, and then I'll head into print, and then I'm off to the races, and had plans of, I don't know, newspaper, magazine or something. But I fell in love with the TV aspect of it, and I just thought the production of it was cool. I took like a duck to water as soon as the camera went on, and I didn't look back after that. So it wasn't really to my second year of university that I started to really pursue the television side of things, and then I started just to pursue a sports aspect of it. And it's crazy how many things had to happen at the exact time that they happened for Smash Wrestling and me to just be in the same place at the same time. It's thinking about it now, it's unreal, like the odds that I'm here doing this even with you today. It's crazy.
Well, we do appreciate you being here, and of course doing what you're passionate about, because I feel like that, especially in 2020, a lot of people still don't find their passions, or they had a passion, but they don't really hold on to it. You know what I mean? But I feel like that with sports broadcasting, with a lot of journalism, and with a lot of just production in general, it's a passion where it just breathes inside of you. It just kind of like eats you up inside. and it really just helps you, continue on to pursue that passion at the end of the goal.
Well, yeah, and I think that there's no age where it's right to, or okay, I have to get, be at this stage in life by the time I'm 25 or by the time I'm 30, or whatever the case is. Like, just people got to erase that from their minds. It's never too late to start pursuing your passion, and the best way to start is just do it. Just go out and do it. Just go out and try it. And I can remember being 16, 17, I'm watching Monday Night Raw, and my dad poked his head in the room. And he kind of chuckled. He says, you're not growing out of this yet? And I said, well, I don't know if I'm going to, man. And now here I am at the age of 33, still watching and now participating in it as well. And yeah, I don't think I am going to grow out of my wrestling phase. I started at 4, and over 30 years later, we're still at it. So.
Absolutely. And, you started, your passion for professional wrestling at such a young age, like you mentioned before, just at 4. Was there any in particular match or any particular moment that just clicked for you?
The very first memory I have of pro wrestling is on Superstars, where Macho Man's arms are caught in the ropes and Jake the Snake's got the snake biting into there. And I was 4 years old when and rather than scaring me to death, I just thought that was the coolest thing. Like that, the snake biting him. And the call of Vince McMahon on commentary, very underrated as a commentator, by the way. Vince McMahon, I thought he was great.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, I hope that snake's been devenomized while it's biting into the arm and stuff like that. Whole just image is just burned into my memory still to this day. I was very big into being Canadian, I was a very big Bret Hart guy. And that the match that really sticks out from my childhood, it was that Iron Man match between him and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 12. I could watch that thing over and over and over again and never get sick and tired of it. So, there's a lot of iconic moments that I'm sure we all share from the Attitude Era as well, burn in my head, growing up into it. And then, a lot of my favorite memories in wrestling now are all from the independent scene, though. Like I think it's a lot. The product on TV, it's a lot different when you have a lot of corporate sponsors that you have to appease at the same time. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just something you have to take into consideration. But that's the difference again between the independent wrestling and the big leagues. In the independent wrestling, you don't have those corporate sponsors that you have to appease. So it's a lot less scripted. It's a lot more raw. It's a lot of times you're able to do a little bit more of an edgier product.
Absolutely. And when it comes to the independent scene, of course, when we talk about the ones that are, of course, aired on YouTube and the ones that are, of course, aired on Fight TV or whatever the case may be, it's always great to kind of watch that edgier product, because that it's more than just professional wrestling. Again, they're telling a story that's not scripted, that's not, being put on a red light, and you're like, okay, like you gotta make this as PG as possible. So it's always great to kind of experience that kind of story.
Well, yeah, and I think it's more relatable, I think, as well. Like especially when you're able to tell a story in words that people actually use in regular vernacular. You're able to tell you're not. It's very clear a lot of times on television when someone is reciting a script. Or sometimes they'll even show a glimpse of commentary and they're literally reading off a script for some calls. Like I think it's just more of a relatable product when I'm trying to say things in a way that I would normally say it on or off camera. I don't think that there is really a difference. I don't put on a voice for the microphone. I don't put on a character for the cameras. I'm me the entire time I'm doing it, and I'm just having a blast while I do it, and I'm being a fan with the fans, and it just happens to be the microphones in front of my mouth while I'm watching it.
Absolutely. And it's like I mentioned before, again, it's just so awesome how you're just putting it in your own words. You're talking to the audience as if they're, just regular fans just wanting to talk to you. It's so great that you're just putting this as a normal conversation compared to a lot of the times when, you see something on Monday Night Raw where it's like Michael Cole starting off and saying, oh, well, reading off a teleprompter and kind of making it kind of just forced rather than just having that Michael Cole we all know and love back in the, back in the UK tournament, for example, how he just kind of was off the script, more of just calling the action in the ring.
Well, and it's, I've tried it because I don't think that there is a right or wrong way to do commentary. I'm definitely not trying to knock anyone else who does commentary that might disagree with me or might do it a different way. It just that style doesn't work for me personally, and I tried a whole bunch of different ways when we started. I started trying to go calling a match completely blind, not knowing the finish, and I had some challenges with that because it's hard to. A lot of times as well in storytelling, you're trying to foreshadow different aspects of the story, or perhaps foreshadow something that might be happening 3 shows from now. I can't do that if I don't know the finish of the match. So I have to kind of do it in a way of, I know how it ends, but I'm not going to let on that I know how it's going to end. You want to maintain that suspension of disbelief as well at the same time. So it's coming across natural at the same time. But I've also tried. There's certain lines that I knew I wanted to say, so I'd write them down, and then that didn't work for me either because I found I was way too more focused on quote unquote getting my shit in than I wasn't actually just like relaxing and calling the match. So I scrapped that, and now I go into it. Like I said, I don't really take a whole lot of notes before calling any matches. I more of a sit down with the talent, have them tell me their version of what they're going to do and what story they're trying to tell in their match, and then try to do it justice. The story they're trying to tell, it's my voice that's telling their story. So I find that way works best for me. Doesn't mean it's going to work best for everybody. Might not work for anybody else. But I've tried a whole bunch of different ways, and so far I think just having a conversation with someone and then being conversational on commentary seems to work best.
Absolutely. And that strategy alone is absolutely awesome because you're getting to know the talent. You're getting to know that, okay, how is their story going to be told through my voice? And it's always great to know that you have that some sort of a, coordination, that kind of connection with the talent itself, to know that once they get in the ring and once they hear it back, of course, because they'll always check it out on YouTube or on Fight TV. It's always great to know that you guys have an understanding for each other.
Well, and that's it. I think for the most part, the talent respects the role that I have, and I respect the role that they have. And it takes both sides. We need each other for this final product to be as good as it can possibly be. So yeah, and I think with that mutual respect for the roles we both play, the proof is in that final result.
Absolutely. And now I do want to go into something that a lot of people have been affected by. And of course, what I'm talking about is COVID. So sadly, there was a lot of stuff that was supposed to happen this year in terms of professional wrestling, in terms of all this other stuff. And then, of course, COVID had shut everything down. And of course, currently, you guys are in shutdown, if I'm not mistaken, with Canada. Yeah. So can you talk about how much did this pandemic really impact you, not just as a talent, but also as a person?
It's been a gut punch as a talent. Like it's very hard to have something you love kind of ripped away from you through no fault of your own. And it's not just me that lost pro wrestling. We all lost pro wrestling, and it's a gut punch to know that, because I know what pro wrestling does for me personally, and I know what it does for a lot of other people as well. But through that, you find different ways to create content. You find different ways, again, thinking outside the box. I think I've always excelled at thinking outside the box and being as creative as possible. I started dabbling a little bit with my social media over the course of when we were locked down here, making a whole lot of stupid videos, but just really to keep myself sane, to give me a reason to get out of bed, put clothes on, to hop in the shower every day, and not just lay around on the couch the entire quarantine that we were stuck in here. I also started doing a promo contest where, well, we can't wrestle, so what aspect of wrestling can we still do?
Right.
So I had a whole bunch of different independent wrestlers volunteer for the spot. We did a promo contest. The fans voted on it. So little things like that, trying to keep our toes in the water here and keep our heads firmly planted on top of our bodies at the same time. But yeah, I think professionally, it's been a struggle without wrestling, and I think personally, it's been a lot of time to self-reflect, to self-improve. I think when the product does come back, there will be a lot of changes for the better. That's not just Smash Wrestling, that's wrestling in general. I think a lot of people have been taking this time to really hit the reset button and calling out a lot of things that had to be, quite frankly, called out, and people for their actions that, quite frankly, had to be called out. So I think that we're just at a point now where it's supposed to be fun. We're supposed to have a good time with pro wrestling. So let's take out the parts that aren't fun. Let's do less of that. Let's do more of what does make it fun. So that way, when it comes back, it's where we're guns blazing and pedal to the metal, and we're all having a blast, and we're putting the fun back in pro wrestling.
Absolutely. We hope that restart comes a little sooner rather than later, of course. But speaking about Scott Hunter, once again, we talk about Smash Wrestling and the heart and the soul and the voice that you put behind it. Smash Wrestling has been known to be highlighting stars, making stars, and to really kind of break them out of their shell, to really highlight them in a sense where if you don't know who Scott Hunter is, now you know who Scott Hunter is. If you don't know who Kevin Bennett is, who's the current Smash Wrestling champion, still going to this day, thanks to quarantine, now you know who Kevin Bennett is. If you don't know where Johnny Gargano's origins were from, make sure you check out Smash Wrestling, some of his matches over there. Same thing goes with Tyson Duke. Same thing goes with all these names that come that we may have heard of before, and we really want to do some research and go dive deep into that. It's really Smash Wrestling. So how does it feel being associated with a promotion that really gives you that feel of breaking out, to really showcasing yourself to the world?
Well, I mean, and that's, to be honest with you, more of a credit to the talent than it is to Smash Wrestling. I mean, we provide the platform for the talent, but at the end of the day, it's them that's got to do it. And I think that we're a promotion that a lot of people can look back on and say, hey, these guys were here before they were stars. But make no mistake about it, they were all going to be stars with or without a Smash Wrestling. We just kind of gave them a platform to showcase what they were doing, and we gave them an outlet. And a lot of times too, there are some independent promotions that are going to have an agenda of, this is what we want our stars to be, and this is what we want your character to do. And at Smash Wrestling, we're a lot more of, what do you want? Who do you want your character to be? What do you want your character to do? And that's when you get to see the development in someone like a Courtney Rush wanting to dabble into this idea of a character she has. And we didn't, mind you, we never named her Rosemary. We just kept calling it the Demon until she went to Impact Wrestling. And then from there, they really kind of created more of a character out of the mold that she carved for herself in Smash Wrestling. But it's really cool to be able to, if you're a fan of someone like a Rosemary, to go back and say, oh, where did this character come from? Where did this character start? And the origin story is sort of in Smash Wrestling as to how this that transformation came to be and that came to happen. So that's really cool. A lot of, like you said, Kevin Bennett is another guy that's just he's come so far in his career in Smash Wrestling as well. And when he came in, he had a buddy of his that was a bigger guy. He wanted to have him come in and be his bodyguard there. So we had, and that was Tyler Body. So he came in, and then we had one of our guys that we were kind of thinking for his kind of bodyguard role as well in the Muscle. So we ended up putting them together, and they just, it all worked. It all clicked. So I think that there's a lot of times it's just a matter of giving the talent the outlet to be them and to tell their stories and to show off their characters. And if they're passionate about what they're doing, it's easy for me to get passionate about what I'm doing, because they're making my job easy. And I feel like that's the biggest thing between a good wrestler and a not so good wrestler, is how easy do you make everyone else's job around you? And if you're making it pretty damn easy, then you must be pretty damn good at what you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, Scott, I do want to thank you so much for being on here and getting this conversation. It's great to really hear from another passionate individual for sports broadcasting and the commentary game. But before we go, I do have one final question, and I think this is kind of the hot take question of the whole interview, and that is, so you say that, of course, you had inspirations like Jim Ross. And so Jim Ross, actually, for those who don't know, is a part of this little promotion called AEW, which is known as All Elite Wrestling. They've been recently taking a lot of guest commentary here and there, especially when it comes to Dark, and especially when it comes to their main show, Dynamite, whether that's Veda Scott, Excalibur, Taz, or Anthony Orgoa. I'm hoping I'm saying his name right. That's an MMA fighter as well. So for you, Scott, would it be possible within the maybe, pandemic over or not, we might possibly see you a part of those names, whether that is for AEW, whether that is for WWE, or even Impact Wrestling?
I would love for that to be the case. To be honest with you, there, I think anybody would be lying if they said that wasn't the ultimate goal, is to progress within the industry. That being said, though, I'm at a stage in my career where if a call like that never does come, I'm still good. I'm still happy. I was blessed with an opportunity to even set foot in this business whatsoever. I had a dream to call one match, and I've called over 1,000 now. I actually got a chance. We did a joint show with Impact Wrestling, so I had an opportunity to sit down and call a show with Josh Matthews, which was a very cool experience for me. That, quite frankly, no one owed that to me. It was just the right place, right time, and a great opportunity. So would I be lying if I said I'm not hoping for a phone call? Yeah, of course I'm hoping for a phone call. I think everybody is. But I'm not going to let that define my success in this business, whether that call ever does come or not. But yeah, if I'm able to do what I'm doing on a larger scale, then yeah, who wouldn't do that?
Absolutely. It would be awesome just to be in the same seat as your hero, Jim Ross, or same thing with Taz, same thing with Excalibur, same thing with Josh Matthews, same thing with Madison Rayne, or same thing goes with Tom Phillips, and the list goes on, especially in a time where I think it's even territory based now, since thanks to the pandemic.
Pretty much, yeah, these days.
Well, thank you so much, Scott. For those who don't know, make sure to follow him on all social medias. Link will be down in the description below. And if you have not heard of this man on commentary, I will put a link exclusively to a match that I felt like this man really told a story. And that match happens to be, if I remember correctly, it was Johnny Gargano versus Tyson Dukes. I think that was one of the matches. It was absolutely great. Two favorites of mine. I didn't know who Tyson Dukes was going into the match, but then afterwards I knew exactly who he was. Of course, the owner of the Tyson Dukes Wrestling Factory as well. So make sure you guys go check that match out, check his workout, and all things social media. And until we meet again, I will see you guys in the next interview.